What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This week we got UFC Fight Night Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Robocop Rodrigues. Looking forward to the card. Pretty good card overall, so I'm going to be going ahead and getting right into the full card predictions. I just recorded this whole video and I realized my mic wasn't on and it had no audio, so we're going ahead and doing it again. Our first fight on the card, we have Valter Walker versus Don'Tale Mayes. Don'Tale Mayes got tripped up and made to look a fool versus Shamil the Blob Gaziev, who had a decent fight last time out versus another Blob and Thomas Peterson. But Don'Tale Mayes, he's only ever beaten super low level fighters. He doesn't have good cardio. He has no grappling ability. He has no ability to get up from the bottom. We saw that last time out versus Shamil the Blob. Valter Walker, on the other hand, didn't look overly impressive in his UFC debut versus Lucas Brzeski, but looked decent last time out versus Tafa on UFC 305, getting the submission. And look, I think Valter Walker is going to get the job done via round one submission here. I think he's just more well-rounded. He's got more, momentum going into this spot. Don'Tale Mayes, getting older. Not a guy that I think takes his career too seriously. Valter Walker, it's only his third UFC fight. He's got, a reason to want to try to better his career, maybe trying to break into the rankings. I mean, there's only 30 fighters even in the heavyweight rankings, so he's going to try to get to the rankings. He's got upward mobility in his career. Don'Tale Mayes doesn't have that. He doesn't have any upwards trajectory going for him. He doesn't have any grappling skill sets. And his last win was over Caio Machado, who just really isn't good whatsoever. So I think Valter Walker, despite losing to Lucas Brzeski, I trust him to make improvements here. I think he can get the job done. Just kind of flop on him like a walrus and Kimura him. Find some type of crafty submission. So yeah, give me Valter Walker to win by submission. Our next fight on the card, we have Vince Morales versus Elijah Smith. Vince Morales is basically just like your NPC, bantamweight, decent everywhere, MMA generalist. You've seen like 1,000 Vince Moraleses. Even though, it's a bunch of different people, you get what I'm saying. He's like the same archetype of fighter as a lot of guys. Just MMA generalist, American guy, not too good anywhere, and just goes in there and tries his best. Last time out, didn't do too good versus Taylor Lapulus, got pieced up there, but that was on short notice. He's a guy that I'm pretty sure did get cut from the UFC at one point. They're giving him a second try. Elijah Smith coming in here off the Dana White Contender Series. Questionable performance. I think his cardio and his heart is definitely something that has some question marks surrounding it. He's a guy that strikes me as more of an athlete rather than a fighter. He's somebody that he has natural skills. His dad is a former UFC fighter. I forgot what his name was, but he's his coach. Look, Elijah Smith, he's got good boxing, good, well-rounded skill sets, can implement the grappling. But like I said, I think his cardio has some issues. In his Dana White Contender Series fight against Aaron Tao, he was starting to break in that second and third round against a really low-level fighter in Tao. He just doesn't have any technique. All he was doing was just kind of bum-rushing him like Dricus du Plessis. And Elijah Smith was starting to get really tired out there, started to question himself. So I think once he fights somebody that's really going to push some pressure on him and really test his will, that's where he's going to lose. He's taken a TKO loss to Cortez Jr., Tracy Cortez's brother, on the regional scene. So that's not a great look. But overall, he's a decent fighter. I think he can get the job done here via decision. Just use his natural ability. He's got, a good amount of momentum going into this fight, riding a good win streak. Vince Morales coming off a loss. I think Elijah Smith gets the job done by decision, mixing it up, staying clean and composed. And yeah, close decision, 29-28 for Elijah Smith. We move on to our next fight on the card. We have Khaos Williams versus Gabriel Bonfim. I'm going to take Gabriel Bonfim to win this one via round 3 TKO. Khaos Williams is a good fighter, explosive, a lot of power in his hands. You look back at the Abdul Razak Al Hassan TKO over Alex Morono in his debut, and even in his last fight versus Harris, nasty right hook finish, looked great. Getting that KO there, beautiful shot. But he's a guy that I think has kind of a limited skill set, reminds me of Jamal Hill, with his defense and his lack of, technique sometimes. A guy that relies on his power, his athleticism a lot of the times. Just really overly aggressive, in my opinion. In his fight versus Rolando Bedoya, he was getting touched up consistently, entering the pocket, just slinging from the hips, eyes closed. And yeah, he kind of reminded me a lot of Jamal Hill with that. But he does fight a lot like Jamal Hill as well. Decent boxing, good knees in the clinch. He can mix up some calf kicks and some body kicks in there. And he's just an overall good fighter, powerful striker, and he just needs to clean up the technique a little bit. But Gabriel Bonfim, apart from him gassing out and just breaking to Nicholas Dalby, he's looked really impressive, coming in off a win over Angelusa. He's a very technical fighter, good Muay Thai. He's got great weapons, all 8 limbs. He's got a submission game, decent grappling overall as well. And Khaos Williams, I've seen that his cardio is kind of suspect, because in that Rolando Bedoya fight, he was starting to get super tired, breathing out of his mouth, hands down, completely no guard, just because of exhaustion in that 3rd round. And Bedoya was the guy who took that fight on short notice, a lower level of competition as well. And Khaos Williams does seem to kind of have a condition of victory of getting a round 1 TKO. You look at his loss versus Michel Pereira, that was a 3-round decision. I think that he's going to get tired, and Gabriel Bonfim's going to finish him in the later rounds with knees in the clinch, uppercuts, just finish him with a barrage of strikes once Khaos Williams gets a little bit too tired. I think Gabriel Bonfim, more well-rounded, more paths to victory, and doesn't seem to have, the defensive issues and the cardio issues that Khaos Williams does have, apart from the Nicholas Dalby fight. I'll lean towards Gabriel Bonfim getting a late finish here via TKO. We move on to the next fight on the card. We have Rafael Estevam versus Jesus Aguilar. Jesus Aguilar, decent fighter. He does have T-Rex arms, but he's been able to get the job done. He's been doing pretty good recently, 3-1 UFC record. He lost to Tatsuro Taira, which isn't a bad loss. Taira's a great fighter. He did have a really deep guillotine in that fight. Wasn't able to finish it, but was able to finish it in his last fight versus Stuart Nickel. Wrapped him up in a beautiful guillotine there. He also has wins over Shannon Ross and Mendoza as well. So been putting it together a little bit. But Rafael Estevam, he's a guy that's undefeated, 12-0, Brazilian marauder. He's taken some time off, but something that I hold to a very high standard is a win over Charles Johnson. He's coming in off a win over Charles Johnson, looked good in that fight, and that's a high level of competition, higher level of competition than Jesus Aguilar has faced. And I think Jesus Aguilar does struggle a little bit on the feet. When Tatsuro Taira is kind of able to piece you up, that's not a great look, because Tatsuro Taira just isn't a great striker. Give me Rafael Estevam to stay undefeated here. I'm going to take him to win a classic little flyweight decision. Our next fight on the card, we have Jared Gordan versus Ruziboev. There's 2 of them, I guess. I'm assuming this is Nursultan's brother. I literally just recorded this whole video like 20 minutes ago. I had to delete it because my mic wasn't working. This fight wasn't on there. I didn't even know they were making this fight. I thought that Jared Gordan had to pull off of this card. So this is basically just a guess. I'm going to take Ruziboev to get the job done because I think he's younger. He's Uzbekistan. Jared Gordan consistently gets robbed. He's a good boxer. He had a good performance against Nazareth Haqparast last time out. But normally you do want to pick an OV fighter. I remember Bakoyev stepped in on short notice versus Zach Reese. Kind of felt like Zach Reese maybe should have been the guy to win that fight once you looked deeply into it. But sometimes you just got to pick the OV, man. I'm just going to pick the OV. So yeah. Literally didn't know this fight was happening. Jared Gordan, we know the deal with him. Good boxing, gets robbed all the time. You could assume that Ruziboev is decently well-rounded, has some good submissions because of the OV. So yeah, I'll take him. Literally looks exactly like his brother as well. So I guess it's his brother. It might be his cousin. Who knows? They're all inbred over there. But yeah, give me Ruziboev to get the job done. Short notice fight that I didn't know was happening, so don't take that prediction too seriously. Next fight, we got Jose Delgado versus Connor Matthews. I'm going to take Jose Delgado to get the job done via round 1 TKO. Connor Matthews, last time out, looked pretty poor versus Dennis Bazooka, training partner of Aljo and Merab. Dennis Bazooka, MMA generalist, just doesn't stand out anywhere too good. And the main thing is he's not super dangerous on the feet, and he was winning the striking exchanges in that fight. Connor Matthews got a win on the Contender Series, but he's an older fighter for the featherweight division. He's not an up-and-coming prospect like Jose Delgado, who's in his 20s. Looked great on the Contender Series. Jose Delgado got a very impressive finish this year. He's won in the LFA. Done very well. Slick, clean striker. Creative as well. Fast twitch. Wiry. Can catch you with something that you don't see coming. Connor Matthews just really doesn't stand out anywhere. Not too good. And I can't pick you to beat Jose Delgado, who has really shown to be a fluid, clean, creative, deadly striker in there when you're getting pieced up by Dennis Bazooka. So give me Jose Delgado to get the job done via round 2 head kick TKO. Our next fight on the card, we have Rodolfo Viera versus Andre Petroski. Andre Petroski, I'm pretty sure he's coming in off a win over Dylan Budka. Kind of just out-grappled him there, but didn't look too good in that fight. You know, kind of gassed out and didn't have any striking. But, you know, Dylan Budka not a high level of competition. Rodolfo Viera is going to be a lot harder to out-grapple because we know that Rodolfo Viera, he has a very high level submission game. You know, lots of jiu-jitsu and grappling accolades. So Andre Petroski is going to have to watch out for that for sure. I'm going to take Rodolfo Viera to get the job done here via submission because looking at it, Andre Petroski just doesn't have any weapons other than his grappling. You know, Viera is not great on the feet either, but neither of these guys are good on the feet. So I actually think this is going to be a grappler-grappler matchup that does have a lot of grappling transitions, kind of like an Aljo and an Evloev. Normally you think two grapplers are going to end up standing, but this is going to be one of the cases where I do see them getting into a lot of scrambles, wrestling exchanges on the mat. Petroski does tend to go for that. He's been able to out-wrestle guys like Josh Fremd. He's been able to out-wrestle guys like Dylan Budka. But I'll never forget him diving into the hip of Jacob Malkoun and getting knocked out, shooting a takedown. Just hitting his head on the hip, which is just a crazy fucking look. I don't know if that's durability issues or what. That was just nutty. Weirdest finish I've ever seen in the UFC. But other than the bite with fucking Andre Lima. But I think Andre Petroski, you know, we've seen it from him. He just doesn't have good striking. He's only got pressure grappling and just kind of smudge grappling, kind of like a middleweight Mateusz Gamrot. I think Rodolfo Viera will be able to wrap up some type of crafty submission, sweep him from the bottom if he gets on bottom. I think he'll be able to just utilize his grappling skills, his high-level jiu-jitsu. I think he'll be able to get the job done via submission. So I'll take Rodolfo Viera. Round 2 sub. I think we're going to get a good amount of finishes here on this card. Our next fight on the card here, we got Ismail Bonfim versus Nazim Sadykhov. Sadykhov coming in off of a decently long layoff. Fought Vyacheslav Borishev at UFC 295, so he hasn't fought in a good while, but looked good in that fight. That did go to a draw, but if you had to really choose a winner, I think Sadykhov would have been the winner there. You know, dropped Borishev many times in that fight, got a 10-8 round in there, and impressed me with his boxing in that fight. He does have the grappling as well. We've seen him get a submission victory over Terrence McKinney and also a good little win over Evan Elder. So neither of these guys have too much UFC experience. Ismail Bonfim, you know, we had a really good win last time out versus Vince Pinchel. Well, I shouldn't say really good win. I'll say really good performance. He had a flawless performance in that fight. And before that, though, did get absolutely marauded on by Benoit Saint Denis. But Benoit Saint Denis, that's a super high-level fighter. Was it Terrence McKinney that he fought before that? Yes, it was. It was Terrence McKinney. Bonfim got that nasty, nasty flying knee TKO there, which was a disgusting finish. So both of these guys are really high-level fighters. I actually am looking forward to this one a lot. I'm going to pick Nazim Sadykhov because I think that Ismail Bonfim, he will opt to operate off his back a little bit. Doesn't have great takedown defense. We saw that in the Benoit fight. And, you know, I can't really put too much stock into a win over Vince Pinchel, especially when he didn't finish him. Looked good in that fight, but wasn't able to get the finish. Maybe he's not as dangerous as his brother Gabriel, who I do think is the better fighter. I don't think he's going to get a submission or land a flying knee on Nazim Sadykhov. And I think if it goes to a decision, Sadykhov actually has a better style to win over the course of 15 rounds. Just win the minutes, land good shots with the hands, not expend a lot of energy, get a few takedowns, avoid the submissions. And yeah, Nazim Sadykhov is like a plus 145 dog here. I think that mainly comes from the layoff. I mean, he's got a good record, 9-1-1. You could really call that 10-1 if you want to give him the win over Borshev. Yeah, I mean, I think Sadykhov is an underrated fighter just because of the inactivity. Bonfim, you know, the Bonfim brothers, before they took their losses, they were looked at as like the next big thing. They've kind of not been fraud checked, but definitely kind of been put in their place. But I actually do see Nazim Sadykhov getting the job done here. I think Bonfim, like I said, just doesn't have great takedown defense, and he does have good striking, but his tit-for-tat ability is a little bit not as good as his brother, in my opinion. So I'll pick Sadykhov to get the job done here via decision. Next fight on the card, we got Dylan Budka versus Edmen Shahbazyan. Dylan Budka, I mean, he's kind of just been a really low-level UFC fighter, frankly. I mean, he won on the Contender Series against Chad Hannacum, who was hungover and high on coke during that fight. So, I mean, who the fuck goes into the Contender Series fucked up like that? I have no clue what he was thinking. But Dylan Budka was able to get the job done there, out-grapple him. But in his 2 UFC fights, hasn't done good. Got TKO'd versus Cesar Almeida, and also got decision 30-27 against Andre Petroski. So that's not a good look. He's more of a wrestler. You know, has a little bit of hands. He tried to box up Andre Petroski at the end of their fight a little bit, but didn't have any success. Not a guy that imposes his will. Edmen Shahbazyan, he's a really good one-round fighter, but he has terrible cardio issues, and he doesn't have good takedown defense. You know, most of his wins come by round 1 TKO. You know, you look at the AJ Dobson fight. He was kind of getting pieced up in that fight, but was able to land a beautiful left hook to be able to get the stoppage. That was his last win. He's coming in off a loss against the Crafty Man GM3, where he looked fantastic in the first round, like always, but he broke in the second round, and after dropping GM3, he eventually got taken down, put on the mat, and subbed up in classic GM3 comeback fashion. So that's not a great look going into a fight against a wrestler, but Dylan Budka, he wasn't even able to take down Cesar Almeida, who didn't have any takedown defense at that point. So I don't think his wrestling is really at a high level. Not a guy that I really think takes his career too seriously, but I think he'll be coming into this fight with like the I'm about to get cut mentality. So he might really try to impose his will here. But you got to go with Edmen Shahbazyan, really, you really do, because he's got very good striking in the first round, and I don't think that Dylan Budka will be able to survive Edmen Shahbazyan for the first round. I think Edmen's able to go in there, clip him pretty easily, get a round 1 stoppage in classic Edmen Shahbazyan fashion. I mean, you look at the losses he's getting, it's against high-level grapplers, Fluffy, GM3, guys that have had a lot of UFC experience that are really good. Dylan Budka is just not at that level in my opinion, and you know, he's going to have to take a few shots to be able to close the distance against Edmen, to be able to get the takedowns, to be able to get the hands going, to be able to mix it up. I don't see him being quick enough or educated enough, you know, across the void, as Demetrius Johnson would say, to be able to have any success in this matchup. I think Edmen Shahbazyan clips him with a clean shot, cleans him up, and gets him out of there in round 1 by a TKO, and I think Dylan Budka gets cut. Nothing against the guy, I just don't think he's really at this level yet in his career. I'm pretty sure he's a younger guy. I mean, 7-4, not a good record. Edmen Shahbazyan, much more UFC experience. They're back in the Apex, where Edmen always fights. Dylan Budka fights in the Apex as well, so, you know, that's not a foreign location for him, but I think Edmen gets this done with relative ease, round 1 TKO. Dylan Budka, I just don't think is at the UFC level. Hasn't showed to be able to use his grappling. I don't think he's going to be able to do it against Edmen. All right, our co-main event of the evening, we got Youssef Zalal versus Calvin Kattar. Now, I normally do mention my bets in my prediction videos. This week, I only have bets in the co-main and main event of the evening. So, in this fight, I'm picking Youssef Zalal. and I have $500 on Yusuf Zalal at minus 260. He's now a minus 425 favorite, and I think that those odds are warranted. And I expect him to close right around a minus 475. Look, there's no way in hell Yusuf Zalal is losing this fight. He just simply isn't. Calvin Kattar is done. He's done. I made a video a while back about fighters that will never win again inside of the UFC octagon, and Calvin Kattar was on that list. And I know for a fact that those predictions are going to age like fine wine. Calvin Kattar is done. Completely and utterly cooked in this matchup. Yusuf Zalal is literally going to win however he wants. Let's compare and contrast where these two fighters are at in their careers. In their last 5, let's look at Calvin Kattar's last 5 performances. Let's not forget that Calvin Kattar quite literally took the most brain bludgeoning, CTE inducing, career destroying, heartbreaking, horrible beating you could ever take in a fight against Max Holloway. He literally absorbed a record-breaking amount of significant strikes to the fucking face in that fight. Got absolutely destroyed and minced to pieces by Max Holloway. And that really, really hurts your career moving forward, a beating like that. That fight really reminded me of Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. The way that Calvin Kattar just got absolutely put through a fucking woodshedder. He was able to bounce back against Giga Chikadze, had a really good win there over the course of 5 rounds, looked great. But that was his last win, and that was coming up on 4 years ago. So, you know, it's been almost 4 years since Calvin Kattar has won a fight. Almost 4 years. And in his last 3, he has completely fallen off a cliff, unfortunately. Look, the fight versus Josh Emmett, very, very close. But, you know, he lost that fight. And Josh Emmett, pretty one-dimensional fighter. Calvin Kattar, he's pretty one-dimensional as well. That's one of the reasons I said he will never win again. And let's not forget about that terrible knee injury that he had in the Arnold Allen fight. That was 2 years ago at this point. And if the Max Holloway beating wasn't bad enough, the knee injury he took in Arnold Allen really was the nail in the coffin in his career, in my opinion. Look, after that knee injury, he had his career worst performance versus Aljamain Sterling. Didn't land so much as a jab in that fight on the biggest card of the year, and really had a deer in the headlights performance. Look, Aljamain Sterling is a great grappler, but Calvin Kattar has always been a guy that's been able to utilize decent takedown defense, and he had absolutely zero athleticism, zero urgency, zero conviction on his shots in that fight, and he really just has not seemed himself since that Giga Chikadze fight. So you're looking at a fighter that has taken literally a record-breaking amount of damage in one of his losses, got absolutely put through a woodshedder, a fucking meat grinder, in the Max Holloway fight. Career-altering, life-changing amount of damage in that performance there. He had a terrible knee injury, which is going to hurt his athleticism, it's going to hurt his recovery, it's going to hurt his explosive ability. Everything that can be done in an MMA fight gets hindered if your knees are hurt. So that definitely showed in the Aljamain Sterling fight where he had no takedown defense. So you're looking at a guy that's 4-1 in his last 5, hasn't won in close to 3 years, and is a completely one-dimensional fighter. Literally all he has is some straight shots on the feet. You know, he's had some good performances, like I said, against Giga Chikadze. He's had wins over Dan Ige. Shane Burgos had a nice TKO back in the day. But he's a one-dimensional fighter. He's getting older. He's taken a fuck ton of damage in his career. He's 37 years of age now. He's had a nasty injury. Literally every single red flag that you could possibly have in a fighter looked like a deer in the headlights in his last fight. Literally every single red flag that you could possibly have for a fighter, Calvin Kattar is displaying that. On the other side, Yusuf Zalal is displaying every single green flag, every single sign of momentum, success that you could possibly ask for in a fighter. Now, let's take a look at some of the losses that he took in his first UFC stint when he was just very young. Very young. What was he? 33, 24 in these fights. His second UFC fight, he had to fight fucking Ili Aptoro, the fucking champ, and he went to a decision with him. Okay, he lost to Ilia Topuria. Let's give him a step down in competition against a ranked fighter in Choi, who is very, very good, had a career best performance against Nate the Train last time out. That's a high level win a high level loss against a ranked fighter. Decision, nothing to be ashamed of. Didn't get finished in that fight. Okay, you can't beat Choi. Let's give him Sean Woodson, the most awkward style to have to deal with almost in that division. The dude's about 6'7", has a 3-mile reach, nasty boxing. Yusuf Zalal is kind of a shorter fighter in that division. Sean Woodson, super tall, super lanky, difficult stylistic matchup. So the 3 losses that he even took in the UFC were against ranked high-level guys. High-level guys, so there's no shame in that. Went to a draw against Damone Blackshear, okay, got cut. But after that, he has clearly turned it all around, put the foot on the gas, stayed focused, and he's gotten back on track, and he's riding a crazy, crazy win streak and a lot of momentum going into this fight. After he got cut from the UFC, took 2 MMA fights in a separate promotion, got the job done by TKO there. Also, looked to sharpen up on the specifics in his striking. Took a boxing fight and a kickboxing fight, got the job done in both of those. Took another MMA fight in the Sparta promotion, got the job done by submission, so he's clearly improving every aspect of his game. Got some specifics matches in with the boxing and the kickboxing to improve the striking. Won via submission right after that, so he's clearly improving. And then we look at his last 3 fights in the UFC, where he is just running through guys with absolute zero adversity and doing everything right that you possibly could, having literally 10 out of 10 perfect performances against decent fighters as well. Look, fought Billy Q, absolutely schooled him, destroyed him on the feet, and subbed him up in the second round. Perfect performance. He literally got hit with like 2 jabs in that fight. I rewatched all 3 of these fights yesterday. I don't remember him even getting in any adversity whatsoever. Diced him up, got him out of there with a sub. Same thing in the Jarno Aarons fight. He was coming in off a win over Steve Wynn. Steve Wynn. Another submission, schooled him on the feet, got him down, subbed him up. That was in August. And then in his last fight, another excellent performance in November on the Brandon Moreno and Albazi card. Beautiful knee up the middle, stained Jack Shore, and got him out of there with a submission. Now, it's a lower level of competition than Calvin Kattar, but that really just doesn't matter at this point in their careers. The career trajectory, the momentum, the youth, the lack of damage on Zalal's side, the accumulation of damage on Kattar's side, this is a really clear pick for me. Yusuf Zalal literally hasn't made a mistake in fucking all 3 of his UFC fights since he's been back in the promotion. He's been steamrolling guys. He's been excellent on the feet. He's been implementing the submissions. He's clearly really, really focused in and sharpened up that point of his game, coming into this fight on a 4 submission win streak. He sharpened up the striking with boxing and kickboxing matches outside of just doing MMA. I like to see that. That goes to show that you are trying to innovate your game, improve on a fight-to-fight basis. We haven't seen Calvin Kattar improve on a fight-to-fight basis in a very long time. He just hasn't been improving. He's been regressing. He's been getting worse. Look, like I said, Calvin Kattar, one-dimensional guy. All he really has is some straight shots on the feet, decent boxing, and doesn't even have a ton of KO power. Unless he just catches you with the perfect right hand, he's normally not just staining guys with one shot. So, you literally got a one-dimensional boxer who's old, knee injury, has taken a fuck ton of damage, and has zero confidence left in his game versus one of the most surging, confident, hungry prospects in the division in Yusuf Zalal, who's had nothing but 10 out of 10, zero adversity performances since he's basically been cut in the UFC. He's been perfect, and I think that he's got every path to victory on the table here. I think he can knock out Calvin Kattar with an accumulation of good strikes. Training at a Factory X Muay Thai, he has just really put the striking together. Looks excellent on the feet. Beautiful leg kicks, really good knees up the middle. He's got great output, great cardio. Trains at altitude, so you don't got to worry about him getting tired. He's very good in that aspect of his game. He can easily outstrike Calvin Kattar to a decision as well if he doesn't get the TKO. Like I said, he's got great cardio, great output. He's got more output and better cardio than Calvin Kattar at this point in his career. He can easily get the job done, just 3-round decision on the feet, piecing him up, landing more significant strikes. He can get the fight down to the mat and get a submission. Clearly, he's improved that part of his game coming into this fight on 4 submission wins in a row. He's got every path to victory here on the table. He's young, he's fresh, he's fast twitch, he's hungry. This is a very, very easy pick. Youssef Zalal is going to absolutely, positively run through Calvin Kattar in every sense of the statement. It's going to be a pillar-to-post beatdown. And yeah, I think Youssef Zalal is going to win this fight via round 2 TKO. I think he gets the job done by TKO this time. I think he drops him, maybe with a nice body kick or just a punch upstairs to the chin. And I think he gets him out of there with ground and pound. Like I said, I have $500 on Youssef Zalal here at the odds of -260. Look, it's a little bit of chalk, but on a guy like Youssef Zalal, you know, look, you got to pay the price on a guy like Youssef Zalal. He's getting the job done here. Like I said, he's like a -450 favorite now. So beat the line movement there. This is a very easy pick. Like I said in my video on fighters that will never win this inside the UFC again, I think Calvin Kattar's cooked. I feel bad for the guy because they should have gave him an easier matchup. He was scheduled to fight Kyle Nelson, and he had to pull out of that fight. And look, that's even another red flag. Pulled out of his last fight. He's been inactive. Clearly just doesn't have the confidence to go in there and put on a good performance. Youssef Zalal, just last year, had 3 fights, 3 wins, 3 finishes. This is a very easy pick. All the momentum is on Youssef Zalal's side. He's going to go in there and win this fight however he wants. I think it's a round 2 TKO. Alright, our main event of the evening, we have Gregory Robocop Rodrigues versus Jared Cannonier, the Killer Gorilla. Like I said, my only 2 bets on this card are in the co-main event, Youssef Zalal, and in the main event here, I'm taking Gregory Rodrigues Robocop to get the job done. I have $500, 5 units on Gregory Rodrigues at the odds of -130. And I think he gets the job done. I'll start with this. I think the most important detail or attribute for either one of these fighters going into this fight is durability. Durability is what is going to decide the winner of this fight. Let me take a look back at Jared Cannonier's career, and let's talk about some durability concerns. In his UFC debut versus Sean Jordan, got TKO'd in the first round via punches. So you got 1 TKO loss for Jared Cannonier. He got knocked out. He got knocked out by Dominic Reyes. That's 2 TKO losses. And let's not forget, Jared Cannonier used to be a heavyweight and a light heavyweight. He's been dropped down to 185 for a long time, but I think that has hurt his chin. So yeah, you got 2 TKO losses before he even gets to middleweight. So now we're in his middleweight career, right? In the fight versus Robert Whittaker, I don't understand how he survived that 1-2 head kick, but Robert Whittaker dropped Jared Cannonier with the 1-2 head kick that was all but a TKO. Jared Cannonier literally went down, did the stanky leg, his head hit the fucking corner of the damn canvas in the fence. It was a really bad look for Jared Cannonier. He does have good recovery ability, I'll give him credit, because his chin is terrible, but he's able to survive these exchanges somehow. Even when he gets dropped badly, sometimes, but it's going to catch up to him. So you got 2 TKO losses, and you have basically the damage of a TKO loss with getting dropped and ground and pounded in that 3rd round via 1-2 head kick from Robert Whittaker. That's bad. And Jared Cannonier is getting older. Keep in mind, this dude is 40 years of age. 41 years of age now, I'm pretty sure. Derek Brunson in the Derek Brunson fight. A fight that he won, but make no mistake, he got absolutely flattened in that 1st round, dropped badly by uppercut by Derek Brunson, who just has no power whatsoever, is a terrible striker, and he was able to drop Jared Cannonier. So you got 2 TKO losses, a loss where he got beaten the shit out of and dropped with a head kick, and then you have a win, but he got dropped badly there. So that's 4 really bad durability concerns / moments that took away durability from Jared Cannonier. Lots of damage in those 4 examples. Fought Israel Adesanya, slower paced fight, didn't get too much damage in that fight. But really what I want to point out is his last 3 fights. Like I've said, we've seen the issues previously in his career a while back, years ago, but his durability is falling off a cliff. Look at his last 3 fights. Marvin Vettori, arguably Jared Cannonier's best ever performance, but in that first round, Marvin Vettori, a guy that has no striking ability, who just isn't good on the feet, Marvin Vettori absolutely stiffened Jared Cannonier and all but finished him in that first round. Jared Cannonier was all over the place, barely had his wits together, and he was hurt badly in that first round. He was able to turn it around and get the job done with a dominating decision, but got fucking hurt badly in that first round. So that's just, you add that on to everything else. And then in his last 2 fights, that's where shit really gets concerning. In the Nassourdine Imavov fight, I was there live for that fight, picked Nassourdine Imavov there, had money on him there at -120 over Jared Cannonier. And the reason being was the durability, man. I just knew at some point Jared Cannonier was going to get wobbled and it was going to cost him the fight. And that's exactly what happened. Nassourdine Imavov, he landed some good shots on Jared Cannonier in that fight. And then in the 4th round, nasty pull counter, and Jared Cannonier did the stanky leg again. And look, people were calling that an early stoppage. It was slightly early, but he already had taken like a left hook, 2 knees, a right hand. He was gonna get finished in that fight. He just simply was gonna get finished, and got hurt badly in that fight. The Caio Borralho fight, 5-round fucking war. Fights like that just take it out of you. And look, I actually rewatched that fight yesterday. He did a lot better than I remember. That fight was actually 2-2 going into the 5th round, but at the end of the 3rd round, Caio Borralho hit Jared Cannonier with a left hand that stumbled him. He didn't go down, but it clearly affected him badly. And look, that fight was 2-2 going into the 5th round. And it's just something that really will demoralize a fighter, where he's about to be back on track. He's 1 round away from getting back in the win column. You know, he can get back into title contention. He's still going to be top 5. Caio Borralho, credit to him, he did very good to open the shot up. He threw a nice right hook to kind of split the guard open, to kind of widen the guard, and then shot a 1-2 straight down the pipe. And the way that Jared Cannonier went down after that 1-2 was the worst reaction to a shot that didn't lead to a finish that I've possibly ever seen. I have no idea how Jared Cannonier did not get finished in that spot. He literally, I kid you not, he fucking died and came back to life. He literally fucking fell over stiff as a board, and I swear it was the ground and pound elbows, because he took about 25 elbows to the forehead after that woke him up. I don't know how he survived that, but look, like I said, he's got good ability to recover, but he is consistently getting dropped in almost every fight where he isn't fighting shitty ass Sean Strickland. I told you guys he wasn't a fucking championship caliber level fighter. Come on. Fucking Sean Strickland, get out of here. I told you guys about him. I've been saying this, but that's besides the point. My point with all of that is that durability is going to decide this matchup, and Jared Cannonier has taken so much damage, and I think his chin is cracked. I really do. But make no mistake, Gregory Rodrigues has durability / defensive issues as well. 3 losses that he has taken have been by TKO. In his pro debut against Bruno Lopez, got TKO'd in that fight, got TKO'd on the Contender Series, and most recently was fighting Bruno Ferreira, and he got knocked out via left hand. You know, he's a guy that kind of has the statue syndrome, kind of like Alex Pereira. Doesn't move his head a lot, doesn't use, many defensive techniques like a carriage block or parrying or anything like that. He just kind of puts the guard up or eats shots on the forehead. And he's a marauder, don't get me wrong, but that did cost him in the Bruno Ferreira fight. He was really just trying to load up on that right hand, and he kind of was pulling a Davidson Figueiredo, like really loading up for it, telegraphing it, and Bruno Ferreira just kind of slipped through, boom, overhand left and cleaned him up. Round 1 TKO. But the difference between those two types of losses, TKOs, damage to the brain, whatever you want to call it, I think that it's very apparent at this point that just getting hit with one shot and no follow-up shots, just one shot, something clean, you go out, you wake up, it's like kind of like nothing ever happened. Don't get me wrong, that's not good for your chin or your brain health or your durability whatsoever moving forward, but I think, and I'm pretty sure the research as well backs this up, I think that just getting touched once with something clean and you're asleep is a whole lot better than getting dropped, follow-up shots. He survived, on to the next round, takes another 20 strikes to the fucking head. I almost think that Jared Cannonier being in these longer fights where he's taking more and more damage, he's not necessarily always getting just starched flatlined, but he's taking so many follow-up shots after already getting concussed. And, you know, he got fucking rocked in the Marvin Vettori fight, dominated after that, but still, like, you know, was getting touched up with a concussion for the rest of that fight. You have to realize that when these fighters, you know, get dropped and come back to win in a fight, you know, they're literally going through that entire fight with a concussion, and it's so bad for your brain. And I think that's a lot worse for your career than what's happened to Robocop, where, like I said, he's just gotten touched once and he's gone down. So I do think that Gregory Rodrigues is going to have the durability advantage in this fight. He's the younger fighter as well. I believe he's only 33 years old. Jared Cannonier, I think he's creeping up on 41 now, getting older. And let's also not forget that Jared Cannonier, before the Nasruddin Imavov fight, he had to take a long layoff, had a knee injury where that required surgery, so that's going to age a fighter. Hasn't been looking as fast or as coordinated since then. But aside from the durability, stylistically, this is going to be a great fight as well, because although these guys do have durability issues, it's going to be a fantastic fight because neither of these guys ever quit on themselves. You know, you look at Jared Cannonier, like I said, got dropped in 2 of his really good wins against Vettori and Derek Brunson. You know, got dropped in the first round of those fights, fought back, made adjustments, was able to get the job done. And, you know, in the Robert Whittaker fight, fought through it like a warrior. Caio Borralho stained him and he was able to survive. Dude, remember when Caio had that choke and Jared was literally 2 thumbs up? I don't know how the fuck he survived that. That was just baffling to me, truly. But, yeah. Another thing that comes down to this is that what is their last memory in the cage? Jared Cannonier's last memory in the cage was getting absolutely stained, fumbling his top 5 opportunity, and his career basically getting cleaned up. That was his last memory in the cage. Getting dropped brutally, ground and pounded, put in a submission. His last fight couldn't have ended any worse. So he definitely going to have, I think he's going to have some, you know, demons lurking in the back of his mind going into this fight, unfortunately. Because look, Jared Cannonier's a good dude. I don't wish him any harm in this fight, but, you know, I think it's going to be a bad one for him. Gregory Rodrigues, too, I was talking about the toughness. Let's not forget, this dude's an absolute fucking marauder, man. The fight versus Julian Marquez, they went to absolute war. Gregory Rodrigues getting cut up, fucking marauding on him, finished him off with the right hand, sent him flying across the octagon. Beautiful fucking fight. Sick performance. Lots of warrior spirit, Guerrero spirit. And also, in that Chidi Njokuani fight, he went down for a takedown, dipped himself into a knee. I have no idea how he ate that knee, but Gregory Rodrigues, just a knee to the fucking forehead, right between the eyes, cut him open terribly. Most doctors would have stopped that fight, swimming in a pool of blood, and still was able to maraud on Chidi Njokuani and get the job done. Very impressive. So, both of these guys are absolute dogs. They're not going to quit on each other. And I think they're going to fucking clash in the middle of the octagon until one of them breaks. And I do think that this is going to be like a fight of the year contender, because both of these guys, they'll get dropped, they'll keep fucking fighting, and yeah, both of these guys are warriors. But that leads me into my, official prediction. Look, I said it. I have $500 on Gregory Rodrigues here at the odds of minus 120, 130, minus 130. And I'm picking him to get the job done by round 2 TKO. Reason being is, aside from all the durability and everything like that, Jared Cannonier, former heavyweight and light heavyweight, he's always kind of been a less technical middleweight, not really that fast. He's athletic and strong and explosive. He can cover a lot of distance, like with an overhand or a hook, but nothing's ever too quick. Nothing's ever too snappy. He pushes his punches a lot. His jab is kind of slow. And yeah, he's just not a super quick fighter. Athletic, strong, good in the clinch, but not a guy that's super slick on the feet. And, I think his defense is a little bit better than Gregory Rodrigues, but I think Gregory Rodrigues hits way harder than Jared Cannonier. I mean, Gregory Rodrigues, you look back at his fight versus Brad Tavares. I mean, he was destroying Brad Tavares with those right hands, breaking the guard, and eventually got the TKO. Did very well on that fight, implemented some good low kicks, body shots, and the boxing has really, really improved. I know he's been getting good work in down at Kill Cliff with Henry Hoof, and he surrounds himself with good training partners, Gilbert, Luque, all of those guys down there. And I think he's riding some good momentum going into this one. Of course, Jared Cannonier is not. Let's talk about the Christian Leroy Duncan fight. Gregory Rodrigues really showed to have improved, not only in terms of not getting hit on a consistent basis, but just mixing things up and having a nice clean performance. And he really did that. I had him there. I picked him there. I bet on him as a plus 110 underdog. Arguably the best bet on the card. I mean, he had no adversity in that fight. And Gregory Rodrigues rocked him on multiple occasions with big right hands and hooks in the pocket. Like I said, the boxing's improved massively. He implemented his grappling very well, got a lot of control time on the mat there in that fight. And I think that he has the more well-rounded skill set. He's got very good grappling, good submissions. He has that in his back pocket. I won't be surprised if he implements it a little bit against Jared Cannonier. We saw Derek Brunson able to take down Jared Cannonier and control him at times. I could see Robocop going down that path to victory. I'm very confident that he can actually easily out-grapple Jared Cannonier. Frankly, I think he can easily get the takedown and get the job done there with a submission or ground and pound TKO. You saw the nasty ground and pound TKO he had over Dennis Tululin, lower level fighter, but he does good work on the ground. He really does. Robocop, that is. And, also hurt him multiple times on the feet. I think that these two are going to get into a lot of striking exchanges, and I think that Gregory Rodrigues, his boxing's been massively improved. We saw that in the Tavares and the Duncan fight, like I said, and I think he's going to be able to find a clean shot on Jared Cannonier and get the job done by TKO. I really do. Jared Cannonier, I mean, he's a good striker, but look, I mean, he fought Caio Bajalio last time out, did better than I remembered in that fight because he was landing some good shots on Caio, cut him underneath the eye really badly in that fight. But I think that Caio Bajalio is a little bit overrated. Caio was able to get some grappling offense going in that fight as well. And I think that Gregory Rodrigues is just a Caio Bajalio that's orthodox, that hits harder, that doesn't have as good defense. So very similar stylistic matchup as Caio for Jared Cannonier going into this fight. But look, I think it's going to end pretty similarly, but I think it's going to be, a TKO because, like I said, Gregory Rodrigues, I think he's going to be able to eat the shots, maraud forward. I think that Jared Cannonier really at this point in his career isn't going to be able to take good shots. Gregory Rodrigues, nasty boxing. He's on a roll, a good win streak now. One fight that is concerning is the decision loss to Armen Petrosian, which isn't a good, look. Armen Petrosian's a good striker, but I actually think that Jared Cannonier is better than Armen Petrosian in terms of the striking. But I mean, Robocop had success in that fight, dropped him with a nice head kick in the third round, got some grappling offense going. So even when he's losing, unless he's just getting clipped, normally it's at least a close fight. I think that Gregory Rodrigues He's got more momentum. He's younger. He hits harder. He's got the grappling and submission upside. He'll be able to mix it up. Hasn't taken as much damage recently as Jared Cannonier. And Jared Cannonier as well, I was watching this interview that he had with MMA Junkie, and he was really not showing a lot of confidence, in my opinion, going into this matchup. Nothing against the guy. Like I said, I like him as a fighter, but he really seemed in a bad headspace going into this one. Basically, what he was saying was, yeah, I had a really bad 2024. I hope this fight goes nothing like those. You know, I was number 3, then I was number 5, and I lost to another up-and-comer. God damn, I hope I don't lose to another up-and-comer again, and I don't go further down the ranking. I mean, obviously he doesn't want to lose, but just the way he said it really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Just in terms of I'm worried for him, because I think he's going to get fucked up. He just doesn't seem like he's in the right headspace here. Gregory Rodrigues, I know for a fact that he's hungry as a lion. He's trying to get into the rankings. He's the up-and-comer in this spot. And yeah, I think that Jared Cannonier, you know, he'll really need to just touch the chin of Gregory Rodrigues, or he'll have to weather a really bad early storm to be able to get the job done here in this fight. You know, Gregory Rodrigues, he's a guy that I know for a fact takes his career super seriously. He's not a guy that I think is, you know, fucking around in between fights or in the off season. I think that he'll be able to go a good hard 5 rounds if he needs to. He's never been 5 rounds in the UFC, so that's definitely something to take into consideration. But he's just getting the job done here, man. He just simply is. Jared Cannonier, he's taken too much damage. He's sluggish. You know, he's had injuries in the past. The momentum's against him. And he's fucking fighting Robocop, man. I mean, what else is there to say? I've been yapping about this fight for 20 minutes. Robocop is getting the job done via round 2 TKO. Literally just a 2-3 combination. It's going to be all she wrote. Robocop, he's got the grappling advantage. Younger, hits harder, more momentum at this point in his career, has taken less damage. I think all signs lead to Robocop. And like I said, I have 500 on him, minus 130. So yeah, those are my full card predictions. My bets for the card: 500 on Youssef Zalal, 500 on Robocop. And if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. And have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the card this weekend.